Welcome back, fellow Illumineers, to be our guest. We are wrapping things up today. It is our 6+ drops, our 6 to 8 drop set review for Lorcana's Whispers in the Well, set 10. We're doing it for limited, for draft and sealed. And we're covering everything that you need to know so that you can feel prepared and confident going into your release weekend events, and hopefully onward from that. So we've done 1 through 5. If you haven't checked them out already, make sure you do, because each one kind of informs the other, and I go over kind of less and less each video in terms of things that I've already repeated through those videos. So make sure you try and go through them in order if need be. If you don't have the time, I know it's a bit of a slog to go through all of them. I will have my quick hits video coming up tomorrow to kind of give you the bare bones. It doesn't give you nearly as much explanation as to why. It doesn't really equip you for how to make your own evaluations or to pivot in real time, but it will give you at least the top cards in each ink cost so that you can build your ideal curve and hopefully draft and or build your ideal sealed deck. So that's coming up tomorrow. For now, let's get into the 6 drops. Thank you again so much for your support. It has been really overwhelming. It is every time, and I'm so grateful. If you love Limited, please keep sharing it out. Comment, like, all that to kind of feed the algorithm and have it have YouTube put it in front of more people, but also share it out to your family and friends. I know sometimes we selfishly want to be, the most competitive in our area, but if we help others feel more confident and feel more competitive, they're probably going to enjoy it more. We tend to enjoy the things that we're good at. So help them be better at it so that they enjoy it more, want to play more, which will give you more opportunities to play Limited. If you love Limited, you want to play more, that is the perfect opportunity to do so. And also they'll push you and challenge you to become better yourself. So it's a win-win. All right, let's get into the 6 drops. Without further ado, one more time, let's drop it back to Past Heath to tell us how we evaluate these cards. Hit it.
So we're going to do A, B, C, D, F as our rating system. A is first pickable and happy to first pick it. This is a bomb or just really effective card. There are commons that are absolutely within this territory, but ultimately it's something that you're just like, you open your pack, you look at it and you're like, yeah, this is the one for me. Love this one. Happy to have it, right? That's an A. B is, I'll first pick it, but I'm not going to be absolutely thrilled about it, but I'm definitely very happy to pick this up and have this in my deck. I will always play this card, and I'm going to kind of be picking it in the first half of the pack. C's are your, journeyman staples of your deck. You're almost always going to play these cards unless you've drafted so well that your deck's just crammed full of A's and B's. So you're always going to play these cards, or almost always. But you're not exactly thrilled to be taking them. You're just like, okay, these are cards that are going to fill out my deck, right? These are the cards that you want kind of in the middle to last half of the pack, and they're solid. D is, ideally, I'd like to not have this in my deck. I will play this, but I'd like to not have this in my deck if I can help it, and I'm certainly not wasting any early picks on it. These are cards that you are going to be picking up because it's the only cards left in the last third of the pack, right? Ideally, these should all be inkable. If they're that bad, you should not be taking an uninkable card that's that quality, right? And then F is don't play it. And usually that's because they're uninkable and they're like D quality and uninkable. But it could also, there could be some inkable cards that I rate as S just because they're so bad. And in that case, obviously, if they're inkable and you need ink, you're going to play them in your deck because you're only eliminating 8 cards that you drafted. So if you have, 8 uninkables that are Fs, you're going to play an F that's inkable, of course, right? But you should try never to have this anywhere near your deck, and you should only be using it as ink if I've got an inkable F in there.
All right. We know how we're evaluating them. We know what's at stake here. Let's get rolling. We're going to start with Baloo, Friend and Guardian. He is an inkable 3/8, 2 lore for 6. He is a bodyguard and has support. So if we think back to the last video, the 5 drops, we had Brooklyn, which was a 4/6, 2 lore for 5. He did have Stone by Day, but again, it's unlikely that that's going to be hugely relevant once we get up into the later turns. So we can probably dismiss that for the most part. So we effectively have one more stat pip, 4-6 versus 3-8. We're effectively getting one more stat pip there. We lose the strength but gain 2 willpower. And for that, we're gaining support as well at the cost of 1 ink. So how does that offset each other? I think on the whole, 1 ink to the next is pretty equivalent until you get up to the like 6th or 7th ink. Because naturally, on the play, you're going to get to 5 ink, and on the draw, you're going to get to 6 ink. Especially in this set, you're probably going to skip your 1 drop most of the time, which means you're probably going to get to 6, maybe 7 ink. You're probably better off dropping 2 6 drops than inking to 7. But 6 ink you should probably get to. However, it's asking more of your deck, right? Because we have limited resources. I've mentioned this many times. It's a war of attrition. Who runs out of cards first? So every card that you're inking is a card that you're not playing. So getting from 4 ink to 5 ink, you should probably do that. But getting from 5 ink to 6 ink shouldn't be just a natural, of course I'm doing that, right? There's an argument to be made for dropping a 3 drop and a 2 drop instead of dropping an ink and a 6 drop, right? Not necessarily a great argument, but I mean, if one of those was Merlin is going to draw me more cards, then maybe. I don't know. But regardless, just don't take it as a matter of cost that you're going to get 6 ink. Know that every ink that you get higher is more and more demand, right? But let's just talk about the efficiency and the value versus Brooklyn, right? So we're paying another ink, we're getting 1 more stat pip, and we're getting support. I think that is better, especially since we're avoiding the stone by day, but I don't think it's like substantially better, right? The 8 willpower on a bodyguard, though, is going to be challenging for your opponent to get through, but the 3 strength is going to mean that it's not going to be as threatening to get through. So as a result, I think if I had both of these in the same pool, Baloo would be above Brooklyn, but I think they're both in that B+ range. Alright, Clawhauser, Donut Detective. He is an inkable 5/6 2-lore Challenger +2. I mentioned this in the last video. 7 strength isn't really that meaningful. Now, I should have mentioned in the last video that Genie, who's a 4/7 2-lore, would necessitate 7 strength, but it's very, very rare you're going to get any value out of the 7th strength, more so than 6. So the Challenger +2 might as well read Challenger +1, and a 6 cost 6/6 2-lore is just way below rate at this point, right? We've got the 6/5s, 6/5 2-lore in the last set, 4/7s, we got 6/7 1-lores. Like at 6 cost, I would want this to be better than that. I would put this in kind of C- D+ territory. It's still a fine body, but for 6, I'm expecting a lot more than that. Speaking of which, Creeper, Loyal Lackey, inkable 5/4 4-lore vanilla. So this is the kind of reverse of Robin Hood. That was a 4/5 4-lore. 2 things. Again, if our bodies are getting stronger, they're getting bigger in this set, and we've got something that's the equivalent of what it was in previous sets, it is inherently worse than it once was relative to the set that it was in. Now, this is a flip, so you could say it's not exactly the same, but it's the same number of stats, right? The other thing that I'll say is, even if they were in the same set, I would rather a 4/5 4-lore over a 5/4 4-lore. Because if I'm getting 4-lore, every willpower is critical. Any slight chance that I can quest a second time with a 4-lore character is substantial. So I would rate Robin Hood over this in the same set, and this now being in a set with greater stats means that I don't think it is nearly as good as Robin Hood. Well, not nearly as good, that's maybe an exaggeration, but I don't think it's as good as Robin Hood in its own set, let alone in this set, so I would rate it as a C+ at this point, especially with that 4 damage Thunderbolt going around at uncommon. Daisy Duck, Paranormal Investigator. She's a 6 cost inkable 4/6 2-lore with shift 4 support, and while this character is exerted, cards enter opponent's ink while exerted. This might be the only thing that you want to shift, and even then, the shift targets aren't really what you want to be shifting onto, and you're going down a card shifting. Which is to say, her last ability is pretty irrelevant once you're at 6 ink, right? So she's really just a 4/6 2-lore support, which is just miles worse than Terran, for example. 5/5 2-lore support for 5. So I would rate this well below Terran. This is probably like a D+ again for me. I might be a little critical on these two. Like, they're still solid bodies, but I'm just expecting more for 6. Because again, it's not just that it's 1 more ink than 5. It's 1 more ink than 5 and requires me to ink another card. So you might as well read this because you're probably only dropping 1, maybe 2 6-drops in a game. So this might as well read 5 ink, discard a card, play this card, right? If you've thought about it that way, whew, all of a sudden you're assessing things quite differently in terms of the strength of these cards. Again, the getting from 5 to 6 ink and definitely getting to 7 ink once we start talking about the 7-drops. You really got to factor in that you're spending a card to get to that ink total. David Xanatos, inkable 5/5, 2-lore. During your turn, whenever one of your characters is banished, draw a card. And whenever this character quests, chosen character gains rush this turn. This is worth inking up to 6 for. Because I'm getting my card back right away. Best believe, as soon as I play this, I'm running one of my characters into one of yours, and I'm getting my card back. And then he gets the, what was it, Tweedledee and Tweedledum that had this ability where they quest. And no, it was the Beagle Boys where they quest and give rush. I think that might have given resistant rush. But anyways, yeah, rush can be a very powerful effect. I've mentioned this a couple of times before in Lorcana. It effectively acts as quasi-removal because it allows your character to challenge and banish a character 1 turn quicker than they might have otherwise. So quasi-removal, card draw, a solid body, not an exciting body for 6, right? This is below the 5-cost vanilla stat line. But where this would be a D+ if it was just a 5/5 2-lore for 6, it is instead a very good card. This is an A. This is a card worth going to 6 for. Maybe A-, but A-, somewhere in there. Demona, Scourge of the Wyvern Clan. Inkable 6-cost, 5/6 2-lore. When you play this character, exert all opposing characters. Then each player with fewer than 3 cards draws until they have 3. And it's got the Stone by Day ability of not being able to ready if you got 3 or more cards. So this basically says, she's not going to ready if you keep stay at the same amount of cards. But by the time you play her, next turn you draw, you play a couple cards, you're fine. Right? So, the exert all opposing characters can be very powerful. But again, by the time we're at this late stage of the game, mid to late game, your opponent probably only has 1 ready character. They're probably questing every turn or challenging every turn, and so they probably only have their latest character that they played as ready. So this is really just saying, kind of like the evasive from 5-drop, that they exert one of their ready characters. This might as well say the same thing. It's potentially better, for sure, especially if you've got a stalemate. If you've got a stalemate, she is a stalemate breaker, and for that alone, she's probably worth it, but just know that you should expect the average game that she is just exerting your 1 ready character of your opponents, which isn't nothing. That's still good. I mentioned that with the 5-drop, that's still a very good effect, but it's not necessarily going to be game-breaking on its own. The draw 3 cards. So this I have a problem with because, if you're on the play, you're likely to have 1 less card than your opponent, but if you're on the draw, you're likely to have 1 more card than your opponent. I'm just worried about this not necessarily being parity. As opposed to Baloo in the 5-drops, where it's each draw 1 card, this could be you draw 2 cards, they draw 3. Not good, right? So this is where I would want this to be the last card in my hand, so that worst case scenario, it's parity. Best case scenario, my opponent's got a couple cards in hand and I'm drawing more cards than them. I would want the worst case scenario on this being parity. I do not want to play this while I've got 2 or 3 cards in hand, unless my opponent also happens to have 2 or 3 cards in hand. So that's a risk. And we've talked about risks that we've got to factor in. If there's risks involved with this card, we've got to scale it down a little bit. Because if it was you may have all players with fewer than 3 cards draw up, if you had the choice and it was just the exert ability with a 5/6 2-lore body on, and the option to draw up to 3 for both players, that would probably be like an A-. The fact that there's a risk here, or you might have to sit on her a bit until you can have it at parity, I'd probably put this in the B territory. Definitely above Baloo, but not as good as David Xanatos. You're probably going to draw a lot more cards with David. And your opponent's not going to draw any, which is great. Goliath, Clan Leader, Inkable, 6 cost, 6/5, 2 lore at the beginning of each player's turn. If they have more than 2 cards in hand, they discard down to 2. If they have less than 2 cards in hand, they drop to 2. Basically, at the end of each player's turn, they're going to have 2 cards in hand, one way or the other. And then the Stone by Day ability. So the thing to keep in mind is, as opposed to Demona, you're going to draw first here, which means that in theory, you're going to get the benefit off of this first. Right, because at the end of your turn, you're going to draw up to 2. And then at the end of your opponent's turn, they're going to draw up to 2. You're going to have the chance to play those fresh cards first. Much like Demona, you want this to be the last card that you play, so you can draw up to 2. Because you don't want a situation where you have 2 cards in hand, or heaven forbid have to discard. Then you would never be playing this. But let's say you got 2 cards in hand. You play this, you don't draw any. Your opponent goes, they're able to dump their hand, they draw 2 cards. That's bad, right? So this needs to be the last card you play. To get max value out of it, but you're going to get the benefit first. But you are still going to benefit your opponent. So this is where you basically have to put yourself in a position where you take good advantage of that getting the benefit first, right? You're either able to really push the pedal in terms of who's the quester, in terms of aggressively being the quester, or just dominate your opponent's board to the point where they're playing catch up, right? If they're in a spot where they're playing catch up, you're okay. If you're in a spot where you're behind and you're giving them cards, that could be very problematic. So much like Demona, again, we've got a risk. Unlike Demona, doesn't have the exert ability and draws 2 instead of 3. So I think you've got to kind of balance that out. I think he's probably, in the C to C plus territory. If you didn't draw cards first, if it was at the end of each player's turn, each player, gets to 2, so they get the cards first, he'd be an F for me. I think he's probably... That's tough. I'm going to put him at C+, but I think this is one I'm going to have to play with to get a sense of whether it's good enough to and you can kind of get ahead, but I'm just worried about drawing my opponent's cards. Hans, Brazen Manipulator, 6 cost, Inkable, 6/4, 2 lore. King and Queen characters can't quest. Probably not that relevant. At the start of your turn, if an opponent has 2 or more ready characters in play, gain 2 lore. So obviously they're going to play around this, but much like some of our 5 drops, this breaks stalemates. Demona also breaks stalemates, right? So the worst situation that you can find yourself in Limited is a staring contest, where I play characters and leave them ready. You play characters and leave them ready, and then we build up, and then eventually, hopefully, someone finds something to break that stalemate. That's the worst feeling in Limited, right? This is why I like playing a tempo game, to get out from under that, right? To try and avoid that exact thing from happening. So Hans is one of those things that breaks the stalemate, because it's like, okay, I'm putting you to the test. If you keep your characters exerted, I'm going to be getting 2 lore every turn. Then I'm good with the stalemate, right? Let's keep everything ready. So then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I guess I got to start questing, and then maybe I can take advantage of that. So that's great, but like anything that's breaking the stalemate, you're going to want to be able to take advantage of that. Whether it's Demona, whether it's Hans, if your opponent's questing out, you can't afford to then be like, great, now I can quest. No, you've got to eliminate their board. You've got to make it so unpalatable for them to quest that's either I let you gain these 2 lore, or you decimate my board. That's the position you want to put your opponent in if you're playing a card like Hans. If you don't have that position, if you've got the weaker bodies, then you've just wasted 6/8 for a 6/4 2 lore, right? So you need to be able to take advantage of your opponent if you're going to try and break the stalemate like that. If you're going to put him to the test, you need to have the better bodies. So you need to, if you've got this and you're going to keep this in your opening hand, you probably shouldn't keep a 6-drop in your opening hand, but let's say you do. Or you draw this on turn 3, you're like, okay, now I know for turn 3 onwards, I got to play turn 3, turn 5, I got to prioritize big bodies. which is going to stalemate my opponent. They're not going to want to quest because they're like, oh, my opponent's going to get favorable challenges. And then on 6, you drop Hans and be like, now what? Right? So you got to make sure that if you see Hans in your hand and you have an intent to play him, that you are building your board towards that. I think that there's enough situations where that's not going to be relevant, where you're never getting the 2 lore, and the king and queen definitely doesn't matter, that you're paying 6 for a 6/4 2 lore, so he's a C for me. He can be a stalemate breaker, which can be very powerful, but just inherently not that interested. Headless Manhorse. Manny the Headless Manhorse. Okay. I have heard that apparently this is a headless horse that has a bust of Scrooge McDuck on top of it. Cool. Inkable, 6 cost, 5/10, 1 lore, vanilla. Okay, so you're probably thinking, huge stats. Oh my goodness, no one's going to be able to remove this from the board. No. But the question is, if this is your 6-drop, and my 6-drop is, I don't know, Baloo or Demona or David Xanatos or something like that, like, how quickly are you actually able to control the board with this? I equate it to, I had a conversation with the Rules of Villainy crew last set about the 5-drop Eeyore, 4/5/1 lore, resist 1, I believe, or resist 2, something like that, I can't remember. Anyways, they loved him. I'm like, yeah, I mean, he's never going to die, he's never going to get banished, but also either you're questing for 1 a turn, which isn't much threat, or you're removing 1 character per turn. And it's like, if I can quest a lot faster than that, and you've put 6 ink into eventually wearing down my board 3 turns later, you're probably not in a good space. So, vanilla stat-wise, he's kind of worth 6 ink, but also, like, what is he actually accomplishing over several turns? So I think he's definitely worth drafting, but I don't think he's worth drafting particularly highly. I would probably draft Hans over him. Hans has greater potential. Headless Manhorse is probably going to do more in most games, but neither of them is going to do a ton, and Hans is got more potential. Judy Hopps, lead detective, 6 cost, inkable, 6/4, a 2 lore with shift 4, probably don't shift her. During your turn, your detective characters, including Judy Hopps, gain alert and resist +2. A couple of things on this. 1, it is only during your turn. So on your opponent's turn, she is no longer going to have resist +2. Alert, great. This is like the only thing that can deal with Ursula. So fantastic. Again, the detective synergy probably isn't going to work that often. You're probably not going to be giving anything else alert and resist +2. If you do, fantastic, right? Great. But we probably have to rate her on her own merits because there's just not enough detectives to go around that she's likely to see another detective. Maybe 1, right? We'll give her a slight bump if things are on the edge, right? So 6/4, 2 lore that has alert and resist 2 on your turn. So on your turn, you're probably going to be able to do some damage. She's probably going to take out something pretty sizable and probably survive, live to tell the tale. Great. And then she's going to be taken out by something small on your opponent's turn. So as opposed to earlier where I said, hey, if that happens, I'm still happy because I got my 2 for 1. Yes, but once we start getting up into 6 ink, I want more than just kind of a trading for a 1 cost and a 4 cost, right? I want to see more. Because again, this is almost like a 5-drop that I have to discard a card for, right? Like, I'm probably not playing many 6-drops in the game. 1 or 2 is probably what I'm playing most games, because I probably only have 4 or 5 in my deck, or shouldn't have more than that, right? Maybe 6 if you're greedy. So, if I'm only playing 1 or 2, that means I'm playing like 1.5 on average. You're asking a lot to play a 6-drop, right? Don't just think it's just 1 more ink. Think about it as an aggro deck. If you've ever played an aggro deck, you're not playing a 6-drop because you're never getting a 6, because you need to keep going wide, right? We're not playing aggro decks, but we're still not playing heavy control decks either in Limited. So as a result, I've got her at like a C, C+. I think I'm willing to put her above Hans in that range. All right. Little John, yeah. Uninkable 6-drop, 4/5, 3 lore, boost 3. Whenever you put a card under this character, ready him. This is one of those cards that I'd be tempted to play the cards that will allow you to boost again in the turn. Right? Remember in our 2-drops, the bagpipes, well, maybe not the bagpipes, but the 2-drop 2/2 character, Quacky McQuackerson or whatever her name was. That's a good one, right? Because then you play this, you quest for 3, you boost, you quest for 3, you play the 2-drop character, ready him, quest for 3 again. I've just quested for 9 in a turn. On turn 7. With just this. Let alone anything else I've got on the board. Oh, yeah. So, huge potential, right? The fact that I can quest for 6 on turn 7 with just him, or quest for 3 and ready him if I'm not winning the game, I would just ready him and protect him. Because then the next turn I can quest for 6 with him, right? Because you can boost once per turn. Yeah, he is the best top end. If you want like an aggro tempo deck, he is the absolute positive best top end that you could hope for. He is what you want to ramp into with your Ichabod Crane in your aggressive tempo deck. Yeah, Little John, fantastic. He is unthinkable, so you got to factor that in. He's only a 4/5, so he's not massive. But, I mean, what more do you want? I've got him at a B+, and I think just because he's probably going to steal a lot of games that your opponent would have otherwise won, I'm going to put him above Demona. Rama. Vigilant Father, 6-cost inkable, 6/6/2 lore. Whenever you play another character with 5 strength or more, you may ready this character. If you do, he can't quest for the rest of the turn. So you're looking to challenge twice, right? Or just protect him. There are, again, a greater volume of 5+ strength characters in this set than in most sets. In any set. The bodies have gone up. Even so, like, by the time you've played this on turn 6, you're probably in top deck mode. So at that point, you're just hoping to draw something 5 strength or more, which you probably have maybe a small handful left in your deck by this point, because you probably played one of them on turn 5 and this one on turn 6. So it's probably not triggering again, or at least not the following turn, which is kind of when you need it to. I can run my 6/7/1 lore into this that I've paid 5 for. I think CC plus is probably fair for Rama. Prince Charming is way out of the way. I think even below probably Judy Hopps. I don't know. That's tough. I think depends on pick one, pack one. I'm probably taking Rama over Judy Hopps. I'm hoping to take neither of them. Pick one, just say. But early on, I'm probably taking Rama over Judy Hopps. But if I need evasive answers, I might take Judy. Scrooge McDuck. Inkable, 6-cost, 4/7/2 lore, shift 4, don't shift him. Whenever you play a character or location with boost, you may put the top card of your deck face down under them. So you get free boost. Again, the problem is by turn 6, you're probably in top deck mode, which means you're just hoping to draw a boost card, which you probably have 5 in your deck, 4 in your deck. You've probably already played one of them. You're probably not getting value on this, right? Maybe like a half ink's worth of value. So really he's a 4/7/2 lore. It's a nice dream. If you go this into the Simba, which we'll talk about in a minute, that's a nice dream, but I think he's probably a D. I'll put him as a high D, because if you've got a lot of boost, then all of a sudden maybe he becomes worthwhile, but probably not. Alright. Shere Khan. Fearsome Tiger. 6-cost, uninkable, 5/4/2 lore with evasive. Big boy evasive. Whenever this character quests, banish chosen opposing damaged character. Then put 1 damage counter on another chosen character, so he's setting it up for the following turn. Oh my goodness, if you got any way to ready him in the same turn. Yeah. So, great. Honestly, the 6-cost is not far off from solid value at a 5/4/2 lore evasive. But then being able to quest, banish a damaged character that already exists, and then put another damage counter on. Partners very well with anything that puts damage counters on, right? Malicious, Mean, and Scary. Play Shere Khan, next turn sing Malicious, Mean, and Scary, and then quest with this and banish any character of your choice, and just let your opponent know that each character is about to get banished each subsequent turn. Yeah. Shere Khan is an A+. He is fantastic. Spooky Sight! Uninkable, 6 cost action. Put all characters with cost 3 or less into their player's inkwell face down and exerted. This is an F. Hopefully I don't need to explain why. If you don't know why, just ask me in the comments. The Twins, Lost Boys, 6 cost inkable, 5/5, 2 lore. When you play this character, if you have a location in play, which you shouldn't, you may deal 2 damage to chosen opposing character. You shouldn't have a location in play. There's a couple that are Ds, so this bumps up to a high D if you have a location that's a D, I guess. Trust in Me, 6 cost uninkable action song, choose one. Each opposing character gets -1 lore until the start of your next turn. Each opponent chooses and discards 2 cards. Do not get me wrong. If someone plays this, it may win the game for them. Your opponent's 1 turn away from winning. Using this, give all their characters -1 lore, and then you can quest back the following turn and win. That could win you the game. 98% of the time, this is going to be a dead uninkable card in your hand. This is an F. And last but not least in the 6 drops, we've got Vladimir, Ceramic Unicorn Fan. He is an inkable 6 cost 5/6 2 lore. Whenever this character quests, you may banish chosen item. It is a D. Not banishing items. Alright, let's go on to our 7 drops. We've got Chef Louis in over his head. He is an inkable 7 cost 6/8 3 lore. I've stressed this already this video. Getting to 7 ink, you should be drawing a lot of cards. Because you're asking a lot of yourself in this war of attrition just to get to 7 ink. Because once you get to 7 ink, like, what's left? Unless you've got something that's actively drawing cards after that, you're top decking 2 drops and 4 drops. It's like, I'm wasting so much ink. I would much rather just have played 2 6 drops, maybe not, 2 4 drops, rather than ink all the way up to 7 and play Chef Louis. For the cost, as a 6/8 3 lore inkable, yeah, sure. But, yeah, just, I don't even know where to put him relative to the 6 drops here, but just don't play him. It's not worth getting to 7 for. I think there might be only 1 card worth getting to 7, well, 2. Jetsam's one of them, Opportunistic Eel, 7 cost inkable, 6/6 2 lore. When you play this character, deal 3 damage to chosen, sorry, I was thinking of Caw. Deal 3 damage to chosen opposing damage character. Sorry, Jetsam is not it. I was thinking of Caw. Use the next one. Other Emerald. Yeah. Dealing damage to a damaged character. By the time this comes around, there's probably a damaged character, but maybe it's got 1 willpower left, 2 willpower left, so 3 is excessive. Maybe you can perfectly time 3 damage, but you're getting a 6/6 2 lore left behind for 7 ink. I'd probably take this above Chef. I don't even know if I'd take it above Chef Louis. Don't play this! Even if you bring it in as ink and you've got it in your opening hand, like, just ink it every time. Cost, Secretive Snake. Okay, here we go. 7 cost inkable, 6/7 3 lore evasive. That's hefty. Again, I can't definitively say that this is worth getting to 7 for, but if anything's worth getting to 7 for, it's probably this. This and Simba, which we'll go over in a second. Yeah, I guess maybe Prince Charming as well. There's some of you out there that actively try to get 7 ink in drafts. And I would love to hear some success stories consistently. Because saying that one time I got to 7 and played this bomb and it was amazing is not enough, right? Because the problem that I have with a playline like this is the consistency. How many times am I trying to get to 7 and I just crush and sabotage my own game trying to get there? I'm gonna say that this is worth going after, but don't be actively going after it. I'd probably rather have it than any of these, but yeah. It's so sketchy. Magic of Dispel's an F. 7 cost uninkable 7/7/1 lore. The chances of you shifting her, yes, there's a couple of shift lines, but like, no. Paying 7 even to shift her is so unrealistic. Prince Charming, Protector of the Realm, inkable 3/10, 2 lore, bodyguard. Each turn only one character can challenge. This goes both ways, so keep in mind you won't be challenging more than once. So if you're going to play this card, get your challenges out of the way first. Please, please, please. Challenge everything that you need to challenge first, then drop this down, and then go from there. But obviously, the reason you'd want to drop this down and limit your opponent from challenging is if you're the quester, right? If you're trying to quest out to win, a 10 willpower bodyguard that only one of your opponent's characters can challenge a turn is probably a great way to prevent that your opponent from catching up or preventing you from challenging for the win. But he's still a 7 drop. Like, he basically reads you can't be touched for the rest of the game. But by expending the cards to ink up to 7 to get here, to get him out, have you sabotaged your game enough that that doesn't matter? Opponent's like, alright, I wasn't planning on challenging anyway because I'm the quester right now. I'm the one that's in the lead, and your 3/10 I don't care about. Right? So he's still very strong. You should probably still try and play him if you see him and you're gonna take him. So I'm gonna put him up there hesitantly. I just want, quite frankly, anything above 6 I just want to put in F as a matter of cause, but I'm trying to do this for the people and not just for me. And I know people like to play bigger games sometimes, and that's fine. But, oh, it's so greedy. Simba, King in the Making, 7 cost, inkable, 5/5/3 lore with boost 3. Whenever you put a card under this character, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card, you may put it for free into play exerted. Otherwise, put it on the bottom. When the vast, vast, vast majority of your deck is characters, this should hit every single time. Like, there's a chance it might not hit, but it should hit pretty much every single time. So, I pay 7 for a 5/5/3 lore, and then every turn I get to pay 3 to effectively play a character for free. Draw a card and play a character for free off the top of my deck. Like, that's pretty good, but again, am I so far behind, right? You need to have established a stalemate. Something this powerful is also a stalemate breaker, because it's like, what am I going to do? Just sit around and let him pay 3 every turn for this? So it's really powerful, but again, like, the fact that it's inkable is its saving grace, because don't let yourself be lured in to chase this if it's going to put you so behind on board, right? You're not playing, you're playing for your 7 drop versus playing for what's happening in the game right now. So he's still very strong. I'm still going to put him up in the same territory as Prince Charming, but like, just be careful, guys. That's all I gotta say. Play responsibly. Alright, we got 3 more to go here. We got some 8 drops, and then we will call it a set. Goofy Galumphing Gumpshoe. He is an inkable 8 cost, 5/7/3 lore with shift 5. When you play this character and whenever he quests, each opposing character gets -1 strength until the start of your next turn. He is just a turbocharge of the 5 drop 4/5 or 5/4. 4/5? 4/5. Cool, but like, I'll include him as ink if I've got the other Goofy. He will never ever come out if you don't have the other Goofy. If you got the other Goofy, I'll include him as ink, because this is one that might be worth shifting on to, right? Because the other one I think is 1 lore. So at that point it's probably worth shifting on to, but I don't know. We'll put him in the D categories here, because like, again, if you've got the other Goofy, then sure. Like, I can't even put him as a high D, because he's only a D if you've got the Goofy, but he's still a D at that point. He's just something that is going to be inked 90% of the time, 99% of the time, and maybe every once in a while I got the Goofy out to shift up to. Shere Khan, Fierce and Furious, 8 cost inkable, 8/8/2 lore, shift 5. pay 1 ink, deal 1 damage to this character, ready him. So basically, you're paying 1, dealing 1 to him to ready him. But you've already challenged, presumably that's why you're readying him, is to challenge more, because he can't quest, right? So, at that, or maybe you quest the first time, and then ready him, and then challenge? I don't know. Too cumbersome. Too cumbersome. Just inkable F for me. Like, just don't bother. It's not worth it. The juice ain't worth the squeeze, as they say. The Headless Horseman, Cursed Rider, 8 cost, inkable, 5/7, 2 lore, shift 5. When you play this character, each player draws 3 cards, then discards 3 cards at random, choose an opposing character and deal 2 damage to them for each action card discarded this way. So you each draw 3. Presumably by this point you've got no cards in hand. So you each draw 3 and discard 3. The same that you've discarded. But let's say you had 1 card in hand. You would discard 3 at random. For each action, you deal 2 to a chosen character, but it's all to 1 character, right? You'll discard the card, see how many actions you've discarded, choose the character, deal 2 damage per action. There's so few actions in each deck that this is probably going to be 0 damage every single time. Maybe 2 over 6 cards, right? And for that you get a 5/7 2 lore body. Like, no. Another inkable, I would say slightly better than Shere. Maybe, I don't know. Is it? Sure. Cool. This ends our set. The set review is done. We're going to have our quick hits video tomorrow, but you've got everything now. You've got the tools. Hopefully you've made some notes. You've done some screen grabs of the tier lists here, and you're feeling confident, you're feeling ready. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know if you have your event. I love hearing good stories. I love hearing about how you do well. I love hearing any feedback. Hey, this worked really well for me. This was surprising for good or for ill. This played worse than I thought it would. This played better than I thought it would. And by I mean you, but you could say worse than Heath you thought it did or would. Love it. Love it all. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your support and you checking us out. Checking me out, I guess now. It was us to begin with. And I hope you're all doing well and excited for the set release. We will see you all next time. I'm not quite in hibernation yet, but we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.